I mentioned earlier the use of floral motifs, and that's something that really strongly comes throughout the book. There's just references and mentions in relation to flowers, and even when I looked at the film, I could see these beautiful sort of floral areas coming through, and particularly in the interior shots there seemed to be a lot of Morris prints, so I pulled through some of those in my research as well, and again started to do up swatches inspired by flowers. Printing obviously is something that I could explore in this terms of the floral motifs, and digital printing is something I'm quite interested in, but I'm going to experiment with other methods before I go down that route. But I'd like to explore it and learn about it during this process. There's some of the interior shots. I think this gives it a real sort of over-the-top edge. I see this collection being kind of almost a bit too much in some ways, which is something I quite like, because I feel my work is always not minimalist, but I do sort of keep the complex details just in the patterns, not necessarily in terms of application, motifs, embellishments. I don't tend to go down that route. So I've even marked here embellishment because I'd like to explore maybe trying to recreate this with beading. I think that could be interesting and quite challenging. There's some William Morris prints again, and just to highlight how we can see it being used throughout the film. And there's just a few more swatches that I've done up with the linear concept in mind. So what I'm doing now really is just starting to pull through the images that I'm most interested in, or the pages that I'm most drawn to within the sketchbook, and starting to develop these shapes and silhouettes on the stands, kind of taking the inspiration from them further and seeing what I come up with. I've also been focusing this week on my customer profile, trying to get an idea of who is this collection for. It's something that's very important to do, and I started to pull images, you know, considering what does she wear, what does she look like, and started to pull a lot of Rodarty, Askew, quite sort of feminine floral images kept coming through, and I almost felt it was too romantic and a bit too floral. So I've gone back slightly to an idea I had earlier on, and I'm just literally starting this. I was just thinking when I started the project about, really there's no sort of timeline. We know that Dorian lives for a long time, but we don't really get a timeline on when he dies. And I sort of started playing around with the idea, well, what if he lived? What if he was still around now? And what if Sybil had almost lived? I found this image and I thought it really sort of represented where my thoughts were anyway. And I just felt by maybe going down this route and looking at it slightly, it could bring a sort of edgier and sort of androgynous tone to the collection. So I'm planning on looking at sort of skater guys, starting to pull maybe some hoodies and get them on the stand and put them together with the feminine fabrics, to kind of add a real kind of masculine but youthful edge to a collection that I would see at this point becoming quite feminine. So as you can see, I've just literally pulled a few images and I'm going to start drawing and writing up ideas from this, but I hope this might give it a little bit more of an edge, because even with what I'm doing on the stand at the moment, you can see my doilies there, so I'm starting to play around and creating lines based on the cobwebs. It's still looking very sort of, this is going to be very girly and very feminine, so I'm hoping that that will bring it down a different route. So yeah, my plans for the next week or two are really to just spend as much time as possible working on my stand, sort of pumping out the ideas, being in a position that when I go to London, hopefully next week or the week after, that I'll really be confident in my purchases and know what I'm doing, to have some kind of a lineup created. And yeah, looking forward to seeing it all come together. Thank you.